I don't know how to start it without having some kind of technical difficulty.
Okay, one minute. I got this. I'll just cough. That always works, because then you can make a joke about how I always cough, and that will lead it in. So if I just...
It's such a boring recurring joke. If you think of, like, any other series where their recurring joke is that someone coughs. It's just such a...
That's how it happens in Friends. That's like the funniest thing about Joey is he just coughs.
Do you remember the time Joey coughed? The one where Joey coughs. Great. Well, that's enough of an intro. Hi and welcome back to Real Opinions. The basic structure for the podcast is that we talk about one film in particular, going into spoilers in the second half, and then discuss any news stories or basically just Google to see if anything's happened.
I've had a brain fart and I don't remember which of the films is the film, so I'd rather you... I saw 3 films, but you saw 2 of them, and I don't remember which one we're talking about anymore.
Let's talk about the films that I did see first, so we can talk about Baby Driver first.
We'll do Baby Driver first, so there you go, that's the film of this podcast.
Okay, so you go first with your thoughts.
Yeah. Okay, I would say that Baby Driver is my favourite non-La La Land film of the year. I love almost everything about... I have one problem with it that I think, we always end up focusing on our problems with these films we supposedly love. And I will get into that problem, but before I do that, I love the writing, I love the characters, I love the direction, I love the music, I love almost every single conceivable element of it, and I think it's the most entertaining film I've seen in ages. I thought it was loads of fun. There's very little I have negative about it. In fact, my only negative is kind of the same thing. I'll use your point from La La Land, because it basically sums up exactly how I feel about Baby Driver. The first half, fucking love it, and it sets up a great... Like, this is what we're going to be doing for the whole film. Car chases with music. And then the second half, they kind of stop. And the film is still really, really, really engaging, just like La La Land. But I kind of went, why aren't you doing the thing that you started off doing that was really, really cool? And it kind of picks back up towards the end. But I felt like it ended on its weakest action sequence in a weird way.
Yeah.
But I think I would say the first half was, for me, near perfect. And even though I think that it I think it's weird that it sort of wastes its gimmick in the second half, I still think that the second half is a really, 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 really good, Tarantino-style film. Better than a lot of Tarantino films. I think it's Edgar Wright's best film since Shaun of the Dead. I know a lot of people won't agree with that, but whatever. I think that it's the most I've enjoyed anything he's made since Shaun of the Dead, because I think it's the first time since that film that he's done something other than comedy really well. The thing with Shaun of the Dead is that it's a really, really amazing comedy. It's also a brilliant zombie film. And then I think Hot Fuzz, The World's End, Scott Pilgrim, their comedies are funny. I don't think they're much else. Whereas I know Baby Driver's not a comedy, but it felt like he kind of did the genre that he was homaging really, really well in the same way that he did with Shaun of the Dead.
I think that's the most I've gotten, understood your argument for why you don't like Hot Fuzz as much as other people.
Yeah, my issue... I like Hot Fuzz. I do. I like Hot Fuzz, but I love Shaun of the Dead. And for me, it is that Shaun of the Dead is an amazing comedy and an amazing zombie film, whereas I think Hot Fuzz is a funny comedy film, but when it goes into its action stuff towards the end, its action elements are really overpowered by its comedy. If you know, the action is a comedy action sequence, it's meant to be funny and wacky and silly, whereas when Shaun of the Dead does its horror, it does its horror, and it does it properly and really, really well, but still manages to be funny in between those bits. And I think Baby Driver, although it isn't as much of a comedy as those other films, it feels like the first time since Shaun of the Dead that he's managed to do another genre really well.
Before we started it, I was prepared to go, I think that we haven't had as different an opinion since the last Apes film.
Really?
Because I
Okay.
definitely, it's the same problem that I had with La La Land.
Mm-hmm.
They sold me on its action scenes set to music,
Mm-hmm.
and then there is music playing, but
In
it's
the
not set
non-action
to music
scene.
anymore.
Yeah.
After 2 songs, they're like, yeah, we've done that. The whole marketing campaign is based on the first 20 minutes, and that's it.
I think that's slightly exaggerated because they do have the tequila moment. That's a gunfight to
Actually,
tequila,
okay, I'll give you
and
that,
they
because
have
that was actually
the hocus pocus one where the gunshots start shooting in time with. But I do think they definitely don't do it as strongly as they do it with the bell bottoms one at the beginning, which is the most sort of pronounced that it ever is. But
yeah.
that's also true of La La Land, that starts with its 2 most musical parts and then slowly goes more
But to be
restrained.
fair, also with the thing is with La La Land is that it's also about the characters becoming more restrained in some ways, or becoming a bit more
Okay.
adult or more mature. And I suppose you could argue that in this, Baby Driver gets more mature in some ways, but it's not. It's not like he's not meant to lose his love of music as he goes along. Like he doesn't change his not having an iPod.
I think the big point of the last act is that he sort of loses control of the music because he gets his iPod shot and destroyed. So he's no longer able to do what he normally does, which is score everything to his will. And then in the final action sequence, the song is being played by someone else, like almost like using it against him. So I feel like it's deliberately not being choreographed to everything because that was kind of like his power, I guess. It was like his ability to do everything really slickly in time with music and using music to help him, and then at the end it's sort of not in his control anymore, and that's why it's not produced and edited and constructed in the same way.
I could definitely see that argument for it. However, it's the fact that it becomes almost deliberately jarring with the music near the end. Almost, I almost felt bad for watching the Red Letter Media review. Have you already seen it?
Yeah, I have.
On one hand, it confirmed, it kind of validated what I was thinking about the film, and then on the other hand, it makes me feel like the points that I have aren't original anymore. I don't want to sound like I'm just throwing back exactly the same points that they had, but when John Hamm gets the iPod and he says, what's your one track? And they say the Queen track, and then it comes into that scene and you can't really hear it at all.
No, you can't now.
Like they don't really use it. It's almost like they've set up like a Chekhov's gun, and then like the Chekhov's gun doesn't work or something it's not, and not in a comedy way. It's just that they don't fully utilize it. I think that's just how I felt for.
I do think that's the last 20 minutes was my least favourite 20 minutes of the film, for me.
The first half, I really enjoyed when it synced up to all the action scenes. I really enjoyed that. I think in the second half, there wasn't as many scenes besides the tequila shootout. But at the same time, I was happy with that because I felt like it was laying the groundwork for a big finale.
Mm-hmm.
And I really liked, I think the scene that I thought was the best, not written, but the best setup was the first scene in the diner with all 4 of the gangsters, and they're basically Baby has to keep it cool that he knows the waitress, and that I think was the most the most enjoyable non-action scene. And then after that one, I felt like it was going to be ramping up again back into those action scenes again. It just felt like it never really hit the same high as the first 2 scenes.
I kind of agree, but I think I just became so sort of immersed and engaged with the story and with the characters by that point that I didn't mind as much. And I have to, one thing I know we end up doing this every time and talking about the Red Letter Media reviews. I don't mean to, but to go back to the Red Letter Media thing, they talked about how they didn't think that there were many songs used that were used memorably, or that they felt really, really kind of elevated the scenes, which I do very, very strongly disagree with. Also, they mentioned when they mentioned that, they said Not like when they used Fleetwood Mac in Guardians of the Galaxy. I was like, what? That was the worst use of the songs in Guardians of the Galaxy. But whatever.
No, I agree with you on that. I think I mentioned that when we talked about Guardians of the Galaxy. I don't know if we were recording that conversation or not. I kind of forget.
No,
now
we didn't.
Whether or not,
that one. We didn't.
But no, that was the worst part because they set up Fleetwood Mac, and then they just like, here's Fleetwood Mac, and then that's it. Then they cut it short before he gets.
But I think
I didn't agree with that example.
I think that the music use is really, really, really good. I like most of that. Not everyone, but I like almost all of them, and some of even the ones that are sort of used more incidentally, I think work really, 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 really well. I really like that one that's called Baby. They use all of the songs really well, I think. Even if not all of them are like, oh my god, I remember that exact scene because of the music. I think that they use the soundtrack appropriately. I never felt like there was any moment where they kind of used a song that was used 1,000 times before or anything. It was all kind of different songs, a nice variety of music. So I really liked how the soundtrack was used as well.
I didn't dislike how it was used. It was more than just the fact that I really liked it, and I just wanted more.
Mm-hmm.
Like again, it does just come back to the same argument that I think you set it up well when you said it's the same problem with La La Land for me, in that it's like, you've got it. I just want more. Like, it was even for the smaller stuff when it's their first date and they go to the laundrette.
Yeah,
and it's just like a snippet in the trailer, but it's like them tapping their feet in time with the trailer. Yeah, and I was kind of anticipating. Maybe it's just wrong because I was anticipating something like that, but I was expecting almost like their version of like A Lovely Night set to like a jukebox musical version, where they're both listening to the same song through iPods and they're going around the lawn, and they sort of do that where they're sort of going around the laundrette, but they're just talking with the song in the background. I wouldn't have had as much of a problem if it was just someone had said, here is this heist movie about a really great driver, there you go, and then those musical scenes were there, and I really enjoyed that. But because it was so sold on the fact that this is basically like an action musical, and then there were just scenes where they just ignored the songs. Like, I can give it with like, so I liked it when they used it when they're doing the heist scene and like Baby's pretending to play the piano while he's sat there.
Yeah,
like that bit works because it is just meant to be, you know, almost like background music, and that's funny because they're basically using like jazz music like it would be background music in a normal film, and he's just like he's calling attention to the fact that it's basically background music. And then, but for other ones, I just wanted it to come more forward and just to incorporate it in more menial ways, kind of like that whole scene where he's going to get coffee in the very beginning, where he's like running down the high street and he's just having fun with the music himself. It was just the fact that I just wanted more music, both in the big scenes and in the less scenes.
I agree with your argument, but I guess I get the feeling that it bothered you more than it bothered me.
The point that I want to just emphasize, is just the fact that it wasn't like I was watching this and going like, this isn't good. Like, it was more that I was just like a bit disappointed that I just wanted more music.
So I agree with exactly what you said. I just, as is becoming a tradition with our podcast, I agree with it, but it doesn't bother me as much as it bothers you. Yeah. And I want to reiterate, I'll keep coming back to it, but I just haven't seen a film that I found this entertaining in a long, long time. And I also like all the sort of little things, all the Easter eggs that, I mean, I've only seen the film twice now, but already picking up on those usual Edgar Wright sort of things where like either images or lines of sort of seemingly inconsequential dialogue or imagery come back to be, or are used as like foreshadowing of something else later in a clever way. Did you notice the graffiti in the credit sequence?
No, I've only seen it the one time, so I was actually hoping you could point out a few of the things.
In the opening credit sequence when he's strutting down, getting the coffee, all of like the street signs and then like some of the graffiti are the lyrics to the song, and they appear on camera exactly as they come in the song, but it's really kind of subtle. It's not like, so it's like one of the lyrics is like move to the left, and then there's a turn left sign that just sort of appears on camera at that moment exactly. And the little things like that, that's like, that's cool. And then when he goes through the channel and there's the Monsters Inc. dialogue that he uses later, the you and I are a team thing.
Yeah.
There's every other line of dialogue there is also used again, which is something that you expect if you've seen an Edgar Wright film before, but it was still just when you watch it the second time, you actually know what those lines of dialogue are. Then in the court hearing at the end, you remember his like the guy he cares for is doing sign language, and he has an interpreter saying what he's saying. That interpreter is Walter Hill, who directed the film The Driver, which both Drive and Baby Driver are based on. Like little clever things like that I really do like and think are really fun, but unobtrusive. They're not like, hey, look at this reference we're making. It's just nice, subtle kind of thing that you don't notice the first time, but that you'll pick up on later and just becomes rewarding instead of annoying.
I think the thing is with Edgar Wright films is that I always like them more on a second watch as well, because you pick up on those little things. But one thing that I did get with this one is that I assume this one's like the most basic one, and I assume most people already would actually know it. And the whole first scene is a reference to a music video that Edgar Wright did. Have you seen that?
Right, so I'm just going to explain exactly what happened then. What I got was, what I noticed the first time, and then you cut out, and then you went, and what's really cool is... And then so I just got nothing. It was like it was being deliberately censored. So every time you were about to say what you were saying, it cut out. So what did you say?
You probably already would know this, but did you know that the whole, like, the first sequence is a reference to a music video that Edgar Wright did?
Yes, that's in the film. That
was the only thing that I picked up, is that when they're flicking through the channels, you see a clip of the music video. That was the only thing I really the reference that I caught.
Moving off the one sort of big criticism we had, there are other elements to films we haven't talked about here, like acting. That's a thing that we usually talk about. I thought
acting's a thing.
Acting is a thing. I thought all of the performances were really good. I can't think of a particular one that I didn't like. Anyway, the thing with... I know I've seen some criticism about Lily James's character, and the thing is I kind of realise that she's kind of one-dimensional and shallow, but I don't care, so it's not a fault for me, because I felt like she was charming and likeable, and that's all I really wanted her to be. And I thought that she pulled it off in a way that made me like her and made me care about their relationship, even if it was a little, not rushed, but a little kind of basic and one-dimensional. It was fine. That's exactly all I needed from it. And I felt like everyone else was great. I thought John Hamm was brilliant. I think that Ansel Elgort pulled off a character that could have been incredibly annoying to me, but made him likable and sort of believable. Like, it felt like all of his cocky swagger was actually a front for, like a bravado front around the other people, instead of just an arrogant, annoying, trying to be cool thing that I think it could have been with a lesser actor.
Yeah, I feel like that's the main issue that people have had. It's either the Lily James's character is a bit underwritten, is the main concern I think people have, or that Ansel Elgort, they say, is like charisma sponge or something like that. But I don't know if they're just referring to simple scenes or the entire film, because there are moments where he's meant to be intentionally blank, like he's trying to be intentionally blank, and I feel like some people maybe have not picked up on that, or I don't know. It seemed very obvious to me, but I would say that the moments where Baby's acting as himself, then I think that he is charismatic.
There's a distinct difference between how he plays him when he's around the other criminals and how he plays him like when he's with Deborah, or when he's just on his own listening to music. It's definitely like a performative thing the character is doing, trying to be like Ryan Gosling in Drive, I guess. But it's a front that he's actually putting on. It's not actually the character.
I don't think that I already said her name, but I've already forgotten.
Lily James.
Lily James. I think I would have liked a bit more with their relationship, just a tiny bit more.
I don't think I would. I think that would have ruined what I consider to be a really well-paced film.
Yeah.
I don't care about the relationship is It's a plot point to me and nothing else.
I know it's. That's the
kind.
thing. I know it's a plot point. I know it's just a plot point, and I get that basically the whole reason that she is there is just to give baby something to aim for and to want to achieve. Like she's not the goal, but being with her is the goal. But they had that dinner scene where just the camera's just panning around them and then just like fading and fade out, and that. I would rather have just had like a quick 1 minute scene with them being charming rather than just that. But
didn't you feel like you got enough of that with the 2 diner conversations and the scene at the laundrette? What do you want? You want fucking 500
I wanted
days
more
of summer.
from the scene.
I
wanted more from the scene from the laundrette.
What do you think this is? No. Stop trying to infringe on my car driving violent crime film with your love. Stop.
You completely cut out the moment you went into your rant, and then it just ended on. It just came back with love.
What I said was stop infringing on my violence with your silly love plot. I don't need it.
Okay, great. Speaking of violence, I was pleasantly surprised with the violence in this. I was expecting almost like a toned down, maybe just because it was an American production. I was expecting a bit more toned down violence, but when it got into the more violent scenes later on, there was. I think I liked that it went there rather than just was happy and fun all the time.
Yeah. And just back to the other performances, I think that all of the criminals are really good. I know that John Hamm has had quite a lot of praise for it, but I think that is well deserved because I think he is probably the best character in it, or at least the most engaging screen presence. Yeah.
God, sorry, it's really hard because I basically just heard John Hamm and I went, yeah, and you said really good. That was it. That's all I heard.
That's good. I'm just picturing like you hear keywords and then do you agree? And you have to it's like a risk. Like I don't know.
I'm basically just like one of those like chat bots where you just put in like you deliberately try to confuse it.
I might just start talking in broken sentences and you won't even know when it's I might just go like, so, and editing was, but that, and do you agree?
You broke up in the middle of that. Right, well, this is almost impossible, this recording.
I'm genuinely thinking what we could do to make this more bearable.
The thing is that editing this is going to be like Baby Driver, because I'm basically just... I'm going to have to take so many snippets and cut them all together and make them sound like it's a normal conversation.
It'll be like you're in your room with his little... making his mixtapes in conversations.
That is basically what I'm like. It's just nowhere near as fun.
If you can't get any salvageable material from this, just make a rap. Make a rap remix.
One thing that I wanted to ask you about it, because you've seen it a second time, and I might have just not picked up on it. Was there more of a hint that... I feel like I'm getting into spoilers now.
Spoilers!
Thanks. Do you think that Doc kind of changed his attitude a bit too easily at the end? Or did I just... I feel like it was something where I felt like maybe I didn't pick up on something? Like it was such a...
I don't think he did, because every time he has a conversation with him, even if he is implicitly threatening Baby, there is always a parental sort of attitude to it. Like, when they come back from the tequila scene, shooting up everyone, he's like yelling at everyone, like saying, I didn't hear bananas, and I'm supposed to hear bananas, and then he turns to Baby and quite softly goes, like, Baby, is what they're saying true? Like I trust you. And then he asks, when they're all saying, like, no, we'll do it anyway, despite the fact that, the whole thing with the cops went wrong, and they're all saying, like, no, we'll still do it anyway. He sort of asks Baby and says, like, you make this decision. So I think he does care about Baby enough for it to make sense. Like, he's just like a mad parent, I think, at that part where he's like, I'm not going to help you because you've pissed me off and disobeyed me. And then when he sees that he's coming with his girlfriend, he's just like a real parent. He's like, I shouldn't help you, but damn, I can't help myself. So I think it makes sense. Because I think it was always in his character to be like that, even when he was sort of threatening him. It always felt like he had a parental relationship with him that would mean that he would forgive him and never really cut him off.
It wasn't so
completely.
much that I always got the parental vibe. I definitely agree with that through all of it. And he is just, it's obvious that he's just, the favourite, because he's the only one that works with him all the time.
Yeah.
It was more the sudden change from, like, I don't care about money. Like, I'm valuing you over money, like my life. You over my life, which was a sudden, like, I got the fact that he respected him and that he cared for him the whole time. It was more that he never struck me as a guy that would sacrifice himself for anyone.
Did he though? Did he sacrifice himself? He took him downstairs on the lift, and then he got caught off guard and killed. He didn't willingly make a sacrifice. He didn't, like, throw himself in front of a danger.
Okay.
He got caught off guard whilst helping him, which is
I suppose I
different.
feel like it was more of a sacrifice. You're right, is that he wasn't anticipating it to be like that.
Yeah.
I think I got it more as a sacrifice because he does the very, like, the stereotypical thing of turning to the camera and saying "run" dramatically, which is always a sacrifice thing.
But no, I don't.
Agree with you on that.
I don't think it was a sacrifice.
We joked about it on the Pirates podcast, but it is a year of. I think lots of directors must have daddy issues of some kind. Because it's all about these characters finding that they had father figures, and then those father figures dying.
It is. Even Logan is kind of. It's slightly different.
Yeah,
it's more
exactly.
him finding he has a daughter, but it's basically it's a slight twist on this very specific formula. And oh my god, no wait! I just realised as well. You haven't seen Spider-Man: Homecoming, but.
Oh, because it's got Uncle Ben of some kind or something, hasn't it?
There's so much father figure stuff in that as well. This is a trend.
Dead fathers. 2017 is the year of dead fathers in
This is
cinema.
such a very specific trend. I'm surprised we didn't see King Kong's dad.
That's the thing as well, is that when's Kingsman coming out?
That's September.
Yes, well, Harry's always sort of a father figure for Eggsy.
And then
so
you got
that works in.
Star Wars is just a gold mine of of parental issues. And it.
Yeah.
That's going to be filled with creepy dad stuff.
So at the end of the year, should we do, like, 2017 top 10 father issues in cinema?
We could. I think we could legitimately make a list.
It is just a bizarre trend that with this, like, we laughed about it in Pirates because you were talking about as a emotional, like, ending. That's the trend, but it's even more specific. That's what's funny.
Yeah. One thing we didn't really get into because of apologies, listeners, for the sort of stoppy-starty conversation. It's been difficult with Skype and everything, but it seems to be sorting itself out now. I don't know if you feel that way.
Better now.
But I mentioned that I thought John Hamm was really, really good in this, and I didn't hear if you responded.
I didn't hear any of that whatsoever. I liked John Hamm. He's always charismatic. I mean, you know, I like Mad Men, so I've watched 7 seasons of John Hamm being charismatic. So having a film with him just being John Hamm is good for me. Like I really. But
yeah,
I
loved the film despite the what I'm going to call the La La Land complaint from now on.
Yeah.
I loved it because I don't get the whole underwritten thing, or more specifically, I don't get the underwritten thing being applied to this Edgar Wright film and not to other Edgar Wright films. Like, fine if you think it's underwritten, but I don't get why this one is underwritten and, say, Hot Fuzz isn't, or The World's End isn't. I don't really get that, apart from the fact that it's fast-paced, so they can't have 20-minute long conversations for Baby and Deborah's relationship, and I don't want that either.
I think the point is with all the other films that you mentioned, Hot Fuzz, Scott Pilgrim or whatever, The World's End. Well, for starters, I wouldn't say either of those. I wouldn't say World's End is underwritten or anything like that. But it's more the fact that, like you said, they are just comedies rather than trying to be another genre. Like with this, it doesn't bother me as much because it's an action film. It's an action film and then a comedy film second. And you don't expect, like, I don't have to know how Bats got his name or whatever, just like the Pirates of the Caribbean. Like, I don't have to know the reasons why they're all criminals. I just know that they're criminals,
and I feel like
how they react to stuff.
To me, it feels a bit like that sort of problem where we live in that kind of world now where every film has to be overrated. Every film that comes out that gets loved has to be overrated in some sense, and I just feel like it's a film that has really sharp, cool dialogue, memorable characters that I, actually cared about, and good structure and pacing, and yet everyone still goes, it's underwritten, style over substance. It just feels like people aren't happy unless they're complaining now.
I never agreed with style over substance with this film, because it's not like... Style over substance means that you're actively putting down substance.
Yeah.
Whereas I think it's more just the fact that style is the fun part.
Can't people have style and substance? Is that not a thing? Because I feel like this has that. And the car chases, that's the one big obvious thing I think we've been missing. Although there aren't as many as I'd have liked, they are really, really cool.
Well, that's the thing, is that, like, not having more of something is not overrated.
Yeah.
I would say. Like, it's overrated implies that everyone thinks that something is of a certain quality, and really it's not. Whereas, in fact, I think the quality's fine. I just wanted more. Like, I wanted...
more of the thing.
Just more... Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Because it was really cool.
Yeah.
Every time it happened, it was really cool. But yeah, I loved the film, and I thought that all of the characters were, at the very least, engaging. Even if they weren't necessarily super complex, they were always kind of bold, vibrant, engaging characters that I felt something towards. Like, I did kind of hate the Jamie Foxx character in the way that you were meant to. Like, when he got killed, we were in spoilers, aren't we? We said that. I was like, yeah. And like that was great. It was great to have a film where all of the characters had an effect on me.
I liked John Hamm's girlfriend as well. Like, I wasn't too fussed about her at the beginning because I could kind of see she was kind of acting like a mother figure towards him. But when they're in the car and she's saying, like, kill him.
Yeah.
And she's got, like, a darker streak. I really liked that because it was just, like, there's something where, even though she comes off as nice, she's the one that's kind of, she's got a screw loose. And I really liked that. And it was something... Again, they say underwritten, but I think that's all I needed to know, is that she pretends to be nice, but really she's got a crazy streak as well.
There should be, I think there should be room in cinema for kind of characters that are simple, but engaging and powerful. In the same way that I'll use Star Wars as a good example. Like, Han Solo could be construed as underwritten, but he's cool and he is what he's supposed to be. And that's how I felt about these characters. They're not massively deep, but they're not meant to be. They are cool. They are engaging, and that is exactly the point. What else do you want from them? Like, if you want the super deep characters, go watch something that is more explicitly character-driven.
Is that everything we have to talk about?
I think so, yeah.
I think it's kind of pointless to bring up the editing with the film, because it is just, like, I'd say that Edgar Wright's a director where, one of the few directors where editing takes priority over cinematography, really.
Yeah.
Like, it's not about the images themselves, it's about the sequence of the images and how they all fit together. So I think saying the editing is good in an Edgar Wright film is kind of just pointless, because that's what you expect. I did enjoy it, and that's why I think I said to you, like, before recording, is that I want to see it a second time, because, like I said, I enjoy every Edgar Wright film a second time round.
I would agree with that.
If I knew I was going in with I wouldn't be expecting
a musical, like, people...
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
That's the other thing. I think the whole musical thing... We're going to get into Spider-Man Homecoming a little bit later, where I have a similar point about how a certain genre has been overstated by people, and the musical thing has definitely been overstated. Like, it is that they play music. Occasionally it's choreographed to things, but for the most part, they just play music. It's like calling Guardians of the Galaxy a musical, or Gross Point Blank musical.
No, like, exactly like calling Guardians of the Galaxy a musical.
And, like, I get it. I do understand, because musical implies a film driven by the music. But it has been wildly overstated. And I think if you go in with that adjusted perception. Not adjusted expectations or like anticipation, but just
Yes,
knowing it's not that will help.
exactly. And it's not that, because I can go into a film expecting something and get something completely different and find that rewarding. Like if I was going in expecting something dumb and got something intelligent actually, but it was more the fact that I think I enjoyed the idea of getting a full musical, like action musical, more than I enjoyed getting a full action film.
Yeah,
and it was
that, and that's
like, and it
that
was,
is
like
a
I said, it
fault.
wasn't expectation.
That's not
It
a
was
fault
just,
of the film. I think that's a fault of like reviewers
yeah,
and the
definitely.
reception overstating something and making it out to be a bigger part of the film than it actually is. Like, yeah, you have the moments like where that Hocus Pocus song where the gunshots are synced to the guitar riffs, and in Tequila they kind of do it with the drum beat. There are bits like that, but they're just bits, not
Yeah.
whole sequences.
It sounded like it was being sold on the fact that I wouldn't have been surprised if it was almost like, like Les Mis, like it's songs all the way through back to back. Like that's almost what I was
Yeah.
expecting, the way that some of the stuff was presented.
That to me went quite some way to proving to me, not this is off on a tangent now, but how unobservant some reviewers can be. Because I've seen some reviewers like interviewing Edgar Wright and saying like, is there a song in every scene? And I'm like, no, there's very blatantly not. Like, if you've watched it, there are quite a few scenes that don't have a song in it. And it just feels like they're not really paying attention. They just make their grandiose claims about things because they're too busy thinking about what they're going to write and not focusing on the film. Because if you watch it, there are definitely a substantial amount of scenes that don't have songs played. There is a lot of music. Yeah. There's something like, I've got the soundtrack album over there, and it's something like 30 songs. That's a lot.
That's the thing, is that I saw the listing, but the thing is that I saw the listing, I was like, were there that many songs in it? I don't remember more than half of them.
I do, and I don't know if that's because I've seen it twice, but I do want to come back to, I do remember every song and where it played and how it was used. And I don't know if that is me because I've seen it twice, or if that is just because I think that the music choices are that well incorporated.
I think that's just about everything covered then.
Yeah, I love it. I do love it. It feels like I don't have that much to say about why I love it, because it just keeps it, without me just repeating, it's very cool, which is my thought on it. It's just like, it's very cool and very entertaining.
Well, again, that's just the point of it.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to damn it with faint praise by saying my ultimate thing is it's very entertaining. I mean, it's very entertaining, and that's exactly what I wanted from it, and that's why it's my number 2 of the year so far. So
I mean, it's exactly what happened with Fury Road a few years ago. I mean, you can't really, besides saying it's really cool and it's really well shot and everything, you don't really have that much to say with Fury Road. What do you talk about with the story for that? You can't. It's just cool. Yeah. And I think that, while I would say that I think that Fury Road had more of a lasting impression than this did, I'd say that I'd definitely say that it's on the similar level of.
I can see myself watching this more.
Film.
And I think that's because
I
think that's because it's the thing with Fury Road is, as much as I love it, there are bits like the bit where they're in the green place that just drag.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like there's any part of this that I thought dragged. And I can imagine myself watching it because I like the characters, because I like the dialogue scenes. Whereas with Mad Max, it was getting caught up in the spectacle. With this, I felt like I was much more consistently entertained. Even if perhaps there aren't moments as amazing as some of Fury Road's moments. And it'll work on a small screen better too.
I think, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think Fury Road, it's just very intense as well. Yeah. And its intensity sustained for the whole time. And I think, well, except for, like you said, the moments where it does drop off. But I think with Baby Driver as well, is that I think it's something that I could see being more accepted by more people. Like, I've tried to show my family Fury Road. And within 5 minutes, it's just, this is weird. I think and they just think and I say the whole film's a car chase, and they're like, oh, that sounds boring. If the whole film's a car chase,
this is the kind of film that I think is quite perfectly placed in terms of it has personality, but will still be accepted by a mainstream audience. Because its central gimmick isn't weird; it's just fun. We're playing lots of music, and we're an action film. And that's something I think that most people will get on board with. I don't think that I don't think it needs to be a cult film or a weird film that I have any hesitations like recommending to someone. I could just go, yeah, you'll like it. It's fun.
Yeah, there's no hesitation for me recommending it to anyone.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
So, did you want to talk about Spider-Man first, or briefly mention Okja?
Let's.
Because I felt like you wanted to talk about Okja at some point.
You pick.
I'd say Spider-Man.
Spider-Man: Homecoming it's a weird one. It is a really weird film in the MCU, in that I felt like for a lot of its runtime, it was to me like the perfect example of an MCU film. Like safe, inoffensive, didn't do much wrong, but was kind of just decent. Then partway through the film, it really quite sharply starts to pick up, and I really, really like that. And it's for a spoiler reason that I can't actually go into, because I do think you should see it for that moment alone.
Okay.
I think that moment really is worth it. But the more I thought about it, the more I thought that like their way of rebooting Spider-Man and refreshing Spider-Man and doing Spider-Man again in a way that we haven't seen before was to get rid of most of the things that make Spider-Man Spider-Man. I've talked to you about this, but this is a Spider-Man film that doesn't have him swinging through Manhattan at any point.
That just seems bizarre to me.
It's a Spider-Man film without like a proper central love interest thing. There is a love subplot, but it's very much like it's I would say it's less important in this than say the love subplot was in Thor. Like Thor has it stated more. Even maybe Doctor Strange devotes more time to its love interest characters. Aunt May's barely in it.
Really? As well?
Yeah, all these like big...
Who is in it?
Who is? That's what I thought. I seriously started to think about this, because I went through all the characters in the film, and they were all in it for 5 minutes, and I was like, what was most of the screen time? Like, I don't remember who was in it. But it takes away so much of the established Spider-Man stuff, I think because they know we've seen it before. So it's like, no origin story, no Aunt May, no drama, no soap opera drama, no love interest, no swinging through Manhattan, and it's like, what is there? And what you get is kind of just a fun Spider-Man film that has like cool powers, some decent action sequences, and a better than average MCU villain, but it didn't feel like it got the tone of Spider-Man to me. And some people have gone like, this is the Spider-Man from the comics, and I feel like a lot of those people are people who haven't read Spider-Man comics, because they've just gone, Spider-Man's the funny teenager, that's his thing, and that's all this film has. But Spider-Man's like central appeal was always that he was really pressured by the world and like down on his luck, and things were quite horrible for Peter Parker a lot. All the things he's supposed to be juggling and all the personal problems he goes through, but he's still good at heart. Whereas this Tom Holland one feels like he has no problems, and that really started to bug me. It's just like, everything's fine, his life is great. His biggest problem is whether or not he'll make it to the school dance, or if he'll have to go fight as criminal. And it feels like he doesn't have... There are no stakes. There are no stakes in any sense. Like, there's no emotional stakes. There's no, like, moment where him and his love interest kind of are at butting heads or anything. Like, she's perfectly understanding of everything, and they're just happy to get, like, there's no bullying at the school. It's very light bullying anyway. There's no sort of Aunt May problems or personal problems, and then the action sequences all feel too comedic, and like there's no threat. So everything just feels really kind of consequence-free and light. And I think that was my biggest problem. If I had to say what I didn't like about the film that other people have loved, like why I didn't love it, it was that it felt so kind of consequence-free, so kind of light and just overstating fun to the point where it kind of felt like nothing mattered. They get Spider-Man right. Tom Holland is really charismatic, and that is its biggest strength, I think. That and the fact that it knows... The one thing about Spider-Man it does know is that he has much, much lower scale. There's no massive city... There's no destruction, really, at all. It is him fighting crooks. It's him, stopping weapons deals and small-scale stuff. And that was refreshing for an MCU film. No giant laser in the sky or any of that. But that's
Yeah.
That's like praising it for what it didn't do, if you know what I mean. Like,
Yeah, I know what you mean.
they understand to keep it small, but I just felt like they didn't really get that Spider-Man is sort of part soap opera, if you know what I mean. Like, that's sort of part of his appeal, is that his personal problems are something he constantly has to overcome, and here he just doesn't really have any. I thought that the Spider Gadget suit stuff was really cool, and that definitely made it more engaging. All of his different web shooter abilities and things were made the action sequences more fun and did lead to some of the stronger moments of comedy. And also, the suit has a voice. You know, kind of like how Jarvis has.
Oh.
That was the best relationship in the film, was between Spider-Man and his suit voice. Way better than his relationship with his love interest, with Aunt May, or with his nerdy friend. The best relationship was him and his suit. I thought they did that. That was a really well executed relationship.
See, I find that weird. I would find people wouldn't like that just because it's not a Spider-Man thing.
Well, I'm sure some people don't, but I mentioned this with like Iron Man 3 and the changes they make. I am okay with change. I don't see things being changed from source material and have a conniption fit. I just go, okay, you did something new. Well done. I don't mind. I'm not that kind of, like, I'm a big fan of Spider-Man and things. Since I was a kid, Spider-Man was the thing that got me basically into being a nerd. My room is covered in Spider-Man posters here, but I don't care about things being different from the comic book. They change quite a lot, actually. Like, for example, Flash Thompson isn't a bully. He's like a snide rival to Peter Parker. Like, he wants to be the smartest in the school, and he kind of tries to undermine him. Fine, whatever.
Okay, so he wants to be the smartest in the school.
Yeah, and that's like, fine, that's a change. I can accept that. And they do lots of other changes like that I'm absolutely fine with. I don't mind things being changed. What I didn't like was the very safe, very kind of just overly light tone that it had. It felt a bit like a Saturday morning cartoon, and I don't mean that in a good way. I mean it in like a sort of sense that it just felt like nothing of consequence happened for the entire film. Like, I bet you could skip this film out, go to Spider-Man Homecoming 2, very little will matter. Very, very little of import has happened. I think one of its best strengths, actually, is the way it uses the MCU. A lot of MCU films now get laden and kind of burdened by having to work within the universe and set stuff up. And it often feels like the film is working in favour of the universe rather than the other way round. And I think Homecoming is the first example in a long time of it actually working the other way round. Homecoming doesn't set up anything for the MCU. It doesn't set up any other characters. It doesn't set up a thing. It only sort of takes and uses nice little references or takes events from other films to sort of impact this film. And in a way that makes it sort of feel worth it, all of the build-up and everything. It's like, this is how it can sort of pay off. Instead of like watching another film that is just struggling to cram stuff in while also setting up other films. Like, they have lots of like nice little things that don't feel intrusive. Like, Peter Parker's school principal is played by an actor who is one of the Howling Commandos in the first Captain America film. And if you just look on his desk, he's got a picture of that character from Captain America, and he's supposed to be the grandson of that character.
Oh, I like that.
And that's nice. That's a nice little reference. And then the fact that like the villains are taking they're weapons dealers, and they're taking like item MacGuffins from other MCU films. Like, they've got Ultron heads that they use as weapons, and Chitauri weapons, and like the black hole grenades from the Thor: The Dark World. And it's like they're using the MCU rather than being used for the MCU.
Yeah.
You get what I mean? And that was one of its biggest strengths, was that it was a film that was the first film in the MCU in a while that felt like it was just allowed to do its own thing and just take bits and pieces where it felt like it needed to.
It's the first Marvel film that I've seen where, like, when it's come out, I've seen people posting pictures of details in the film. Like, when you have Doctor Strange, like, when that came out, no one was going, oh, look at this detail that's like, oh, this is linking to this or whatever. I never saw anything like that. And with this, like, I've seen at least like 3 or 4 pictures of references to other things.
Yeah, and they're nice. They're never. That's one thing I will say. They were never distracting.
Oh yeah, they're never in the center of the frame in the ones that I've seen. They're always just at the side. Like they'd only, like, you wouldn't spot them on the first watch almost.
But one thing I mentioned when we were talking about Baby Driver that I said I was going to bring back was how I felt like Baby Driver critics overstated the musical element.
Oh yeah, I know where you're going with this. Yeah.
My God, have people overstated the John Hughes element of this film. Like, it's set at high school. That does not make it a classic teen movie. It devotes very little time to the teen movie stuff. It is mostly just a superhero film. Yeah, there are little bits like where they go to the party and they have to be cool, and what if you came in as Spiderman? We could impress everyone. That's like the extent of it. It's like, I feel like it's something that's being said by people who haven't seen John Hughes films and just know kind of what they are and went like, oh, this is just like one of those, right? And the worst part, I think, was the one time a film explicitly references a John Hughes film. It does this thing where it basically recreates a scene from Ferris Bueller. And I was fine with that. I was like, okay, fine. And then it shows the scene on the TV in the background. And Spider-Man looks at it and goes, that's a good movie. And I went, oh.
He says that's a good movie.
And he says it's a great movie, but yeah.
Oh, okay.
And it just felt like, get it? Get it? Did you get what we were doing? Get it? Get it? Like, I got it already. You did not need to show me.
That just reminded me of Special Correspondence.
Yeah.
He goes, Spider-Man 18, that's a good one. That's a good comic book.
But it just felt so kind of, like, obvious with that. And it was the only time that I felt like the John Hughes comparison was relevant. And it was also the only time I went, I wish he didn't do that. Because, I don't know, I just don't really get where this whole John Hughes thing is coming from, apart from that it was something that Kevin Feige said in a press conference, and then all the critics went, ooh, write that down. Write that down. Because it's like, well, I'm sorry, there's been 2 Spider-Man origin films set in a high school before that focus on the teen drama just as much as this does, to be perfectly honest. There's nothing particularly John Hughesy apart from they are teenagers. That is not the only thing that makes a John Hughes film a John Hughes film. Like, in a John Hughes film, it's usually like the kids have problems and they all come from like they're all different types. Like The Breakfast Club, if we use The Breakfast Club, like they all have actual angsty problems. There's no angst here. There's no angst. There aren't any particular like teen movie kind of cliche characters. They're just teenagers. There's just nothing about it that feels like a John Hughes film. I don't get where it's coming from. It's just something, it's very weak teen element, in the same way that like The Winter Soldier has the faintest hint of political thriller, and then everyone went, it's like the Manchurian Candidate. Because at one point someone says the word senator, now it's a political thriller.
Yeah.
And this is the same thing. It's like, it's set at high school. At one point that Ferris Bueller's on the TV, and then everyone went, oh my God, this is the new 16 Candles. And it's not really. It's very, very light. And they definitely devote way more time to the superhero stuff.
If you had to compare it to a teen film, just from that example of you saying like, oh, if it would be really cool if you went to the party dressed as Spider-Man. Yeah, or something like, or like Teen Wolf, or something where it's the teenager has some secret power that he can't reveal to his friends.
Honestly, Teen Wolf is the closest I can think of.
Does he ever use it to play like basketball well? Or something?
He uses it to do something. What did he use it to do?
Or gym class or something.
Yeah, he does it in gym class, yeah. But it's like, I think Teen Wolf's a good example, because Teen Wolf's another one with zero angst, zero drama, kind of just light, comical, easy to watch. And that's what this is. Speaking of comedy, I felt like this was the most annoying MCU humor's been in a while, particularly from his fat sidekick friend, who got on my tits. His comedy was so irritating and just so easy and broad. Like, it was just him saying things like, let's go make a Lego Death Star. I'm a nerd. Can I be your guy in the chair? Can I be the guy that does computer things? I want to be the guy that does computer. Shut up. Shut up.
Did we never recorded it in the end, but do you remember when we were talking about how he's gonna come in, he's gonna be important in the plot in the latter half?
Yeah.
Because he'll be the techie nerd friend.
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
is that right?
Yes. That's exactly what happens.
Good.
That's
I'm excited. Oh, I'm happy for that now.
But, like, he was annoying, and there were lots of jokes in it that I felt were really kind of easy and just lowest common denominator. There's, like, that Zidane, or whoever her name is. She has this character, kooky teen character, who just says
I thought she was the love interest,
No.
because she's the only one shown in the trailer.
No. But she just sort of says, like, weird things. And so, like, I'll give you an example. There's a scene where Peter Parker's in detention, and she's sat there, and one of the teachers goes, "Why are you here? You don't have detention." And she just looks and goes, "I like to draw people in crisis."
Oh.
That's her humour.
So she's sort of like a very, like, if they got the, I know you're not going to like it because it's a John Hughes movie, but she's sort of like the outcast girl in The Breakfast Club.
Yeah,
then.
She's the closest to a John Hughes character there is.
But they forgot that she's also meant to look weird as well.
No, she is honestly the closest to a John Hughes character. If there was any character you could say the John Hughes thing was valid for, it's her. And she's annoying. I've kind of criticised it quite a lot now, and I realise I've criticised it quite a lot, but having said that, I did think it was in the upper echelons of MCU films. Because whilst things like Ant-Man or Doctor Strange just kind of fine, this had some things that really annoyed me, but it also had some things that I really enjoyed. Particularly the use of the villain towards the end. For the first half, he was very much another MCU villain. And then as the film goes on, he becomes more involved in the plot, and he becomes more involved with Peter, and he actually develops a proper connection to our hero, which is nice. And he starts to do things that normally these villains don't do, that I thought were quite interesting and made for easily the best scene in the film towards the end. The scene that I keep talking about where the film just sort of completely changed for me in one scene. And that's because of him. And that's because he starts to get scenes where he's interacting with Peter, and it makes it so much more compelling from a dramatic level. I also thought that whilst I said the humour was annoying, they have two recurring jokes that I did love, and I wanted them to be made a bigger thing. One of them's the school reports, which basically...
I remember you saying.
It's like our videos are dropped into the film. They're like badly edited, awkward things. It's like they do a school report after Spider-Man saves a bunch of people at the Washington Monument, and they're like looking at the camera and they awkwardly say "Thank you, Spider-Man," slightly out of sync with each other, and then text comes up saying "Thank you, Spider-Man," but there's like a space between Spider and Man, and it's in this really bad font. And it kind of clips through one of the presenters, like the letter sort of disappears behind their arm and then reappears in front of it. And that I really liked that. And then like there's an awkward pause and it just zooms in on one of their faces while they look around, their eyes darting all over the place. And that felt very much like our stupid humour. And there's also a running joke with another MCU character that was actually really funny. Really, really funny. That was good. So overall, I think it's a good film, and unfortunately, the main reason that it's good is a spoiler, so I can't say that much. But I do think that if you like the MCU films, you'll love this, because it's fun and colourful and all those things that people like from MCU films. If, like Jack, you're a bit ambivalent to them, I would say...
Oh, you were very kind. I thought you were going to say something way mean.
I think this is, like... For me, a bit better than Ant-Man, better than Doctor Strange. It has, towards the end, the originality to do something slightly different. And it does things that I think other MCU films could really benefit from in terms of its villain. And I also think that Tom Holland is very charismatic and very likeable, and I think he goes quite a long way to making watching it a pleasant, like, fun time. I just think that the teen humour has been way overstated. I think that it could do with being not darker, because people are going to go, it's Spider-Man, it's for kids, what do you expect? That's not what I mean. I just mean, I wish it felt like it had a bit more at stake at times, because it just feels very, very kind of... Like the Sam Raimi films have darkness, and they have emotions. This felt like it had no emotional content whatsoever.
Well, they're cheesy, but at the same time, like, they're more realistic than any of the other superhero films, because in what Marvel film is the main character struggling with debt
Yeah,
at one
that's
point?
the kind of stuff. Like, there's nothing like that. And there's nothing, because we don't get Uncle Ben, there's no emotional moment like that. There's also nothing like, I don't know, let's use an example from Spider-Man 2. There's nothing like Peter and Harry kind of having their dramatic moment where he realizes he's Spider-Man, and there's kind of real... The one moment where someone figures out he's Spider-Man and it's a joke. Whereas in other Spider-Man films, that would be like a dramatic... It's just sort of now his fat friend's going to be his sidekick. And it just felt like it could have used something darker or something that made it more than just a comedy. It feels like it's trying really hard to be a comedy. And I think it could have done with having... Even Guardians of the Galaxy has serious moments and threatening moments, and this just has none of that, and that was my biggest problem. But it's still good. It's still good. It's fun. It's well paced, and it doesn't do anything horribly wrong. 10 out of 10.
Not a mistake.
Yeah, no, I did like it. I did enjoy it. I felt like it could have been more.
Well, I think you convinced me enough to at least go see it, because after films such as Ant-Man and Doctor Strange, I just don't even care. Like, if either of those sequels come out, I won't go see them.
What elevates it above both Doctor Strange and Ant-Man is, firstly, it has a hero that is just really... I mean, actually, Paul Rudd's likeable, but it has a hero that is very likeable, and just... I could watch him for quite a... I could just watch him and not get bored of him. Secondly, unlike Ant-Man and Doctor Strange, the villain's pretty decent. And thirdly, it's... For the most part, I think it's very predictable, but it does, as I keep saying, towards the end, start to do things a little differently, whereas Ant-Man and Doctor Strange just kind of stick at predictable.
That's the thing, is that's... it was more just that you said, because it changes near the end.
Yeah, and it does change in a really... It's not like it's like it's not the Sixth Sense. It's not a massive twist. But I didn't expect.
No, I wasn't expecting that.
I didn't expect what happened, and it felt like as a result of what happened, the script shot up massively because there was a new plot element that was easily the most engaging plot element. It was the thing they introduce is by far the most interesting part of the story. And so the story gets way more interesting at the end. There's also one really good set piece. Like, for the most part, the action is decent. But there's the bit at the Washington Monument, which isn't actually, it's not a fight. It's not an action sequence. It's more like almost a Mission Impossible style kind of... I don't know what you'd call it. Like, it's obviously not a stunt, it's CGI, but like a sort of tension-y bit, like the bit where he's climbing up the building in Mission Impossible 4.
I think set piece.
A set piece, yeah.
Is the best way to word it.
It's a nice, tense, sort of non-combat oriented set piece for Spider-Man where he's trying to save these people. And that bit...
That's what I miss in some of the Marvel films, is that they never... people have already talked about this to death, but they don't save people.
Yeah, and just... the best set piece in this film is him saving people set pieces. It reminded me a bit of the train bit in Spider-Man 2.
I was going to say, it's fun. It's so funny that, you say, oh, the Marvel film's trying to separate itself from all the other Spider-Man films that have come before, and then directly, rips one of the most, famous set pieces from the first trilogy.
It's not like, I don't mean it's nothing like that.
No, I was talking about the ferry.
But I just mean, it reminds me in the sense that it's it's the most memorable part of the film action-wise, and it's devoted to him being put in a situation where he's got to solve a seemingly unsolvable problem where people's lives are at risk.
Yeah, and that they were always the best parts of the Raimi films as well.
Also, he doesn't have spider sense. That was the other thing. You know, I was making a list of things that they miss out that are proper Spider-Man. He doesn't have Spidey sense.
Do they? I know that they don't have the origin story, but do they just completely skip over the fact that he was bitten by a spider?
The only reference is his fat friend goes, "What happened to you?" And he goes, "I got bit by a spider." That's the backstory. Is there?
That kind of just irks me a little bit. just having it like a throwaway line. I don't know. But it's just weird the stuff that they're taking away from it, like stripping it down.
And I do get. I want to stress. I get why they did it. I know it's because people complained about the Amazing Spider-Man retreading so much ground, but I just felt like they went too far in the other direction. You know, they went like too far into, well, we've seen that before, so let's get rid of most of what makes Spider-Man Spider-Man. Oh, one other thing that I did enjoy was actually the opening, which is basically Civil War from his perspective as he's filming like a video diary of it all. That was fun. And I wish there was more stuff like that, where it felt like it was where it embraced the teenage side of him more and mixed it with the superhero part, because it feels like you get the superhero part and then you get the teenage drama at the high school. No, not drama, I already said that. The teenage stuff at the high school. But that was a moment where the teenage stuff worked with the superhero part that made it feel different. Because it's him, like, sneaking off in the middle of the Civil War fight, filming it from afar, and commentating on it, and it was good. I liked that part. 7.5 out of 10. I was going to give it a 7, but then I thought, no, it's a bit better than Ant-Man.
It's a 0.5 better. You gave Ant-Man a 7 out of 10.
Yeah. Doctor Strange was a 6.
I was thinking, I can't even be bothered to talk about them. Great. Did you want to do... Good one. Did you have anything to add with that?
Yeah, no, we'll talk about Okja. We can do it briefly, because I know you've already got a video up.
That's what I was thinking, is that I was thinking if there's anything, because if you don't know already, we do this podcast, but we do also have all the reviews on our YouTube channel as well, smaller reviews, and I have covered Okja there. So for my views on it, you can go there, but I was wondering if there's anything you wanted to add at all, or
I think to return to our Baby Driver discussion, I would say that I think we could switch ourselves around here and say that, like, we'll just put ourselves in the inverse position of, like, I liked the film. I think I liked it less than you did. What I did like about it was Okja as a character was very well realised and felt believable, and there's, like, as you said in the review, a believable part of the world that other people were interacting with. And I thought that was its strongest element. And I also liked, this is such a me statement, but once it got away from the quirky stuff and got darker towards the end, I liked that a lot.
Yeah, I expected you'd like that. Yeah.
Spoilers, but once they started, mercilessly blowing the pigs' heads off, 10 out of 10. But and when she walked through the vat of blood that they were swiping away, great stuff. But
of course you just like that.
What I think I didn't like about it as much, and this is something that you set up in your review, and I just thought, that you're describing me, was the human characters, and in particular the louder human characters. Not so much Jake Gyllenhaal. I didn't mind him, but I think Tilda Swinton for definite. Like, the opening scene really put me on a uh-oh. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing, is that I argued is that at least with Jake Gyllenhaal's character, he is a TV personality, and also the fact that he does have quieter scenes, and he also has moments where they give him a bit more of a background and a bit more of a character and conflict in himself, at least.
Yeah.
So there's something to him, whereas she's just quirky.
Yeah. It opened on a bad note there, I think. That took a while for me to kind of get past. I also, but it's not just them, I didn't like any of the animal rights characters. They just felt so quirky, hipster, and annoying to me. I didn't like the characters I liked were the girl and Okja, and I kind of wanted them more and less of the adults, who I found to be kind of consistently less interesting.
I'm surprised you didn't like any of the animal rights people because I didn't find I didn't find them particularly hipstery whatsoever. Like I mean,
Maybe it's because Paul Dano just instantly makes me
I did
angry.
not know that you didn't like Paul Dano.
Well, I think that should be a given when you just think of the films Paul Dano is in. Like it's like he's like my anti Tom Hardy, where Tom Hardy is like consistently in things that I like. Paul Dano is like consistently in things I don't like, and it's not his fault. Maybe he's not particularly annoying, but he just makes me think hipster as soon as I see him. I would say they were hipster characters because there's red-haired girl who has colourful hair.
So she has coloured hair, so that was enough for you to dislike her. There you go. So
then there's like, I won't eat tomato because it leaves a footprint on the planet.
His character was made to be irritating.
Yeah, but I was still... It was one of those things where I was just annoyed, and I didn't care if the film was intentionally annoying me.
Okay.
I was just annoyed. And then, I don't know, Paul Dano in his silly suit looks like he's trying too hard to be hip with his suit. And he needs to get a haircut.
That's such. See, it's funny that whenever you see like a film that's slightly indie, you just turn into like a guy that's like saying like all these hippies are ruining the world. You literally said get a haircut.
Get a haircut. Stop
Long
with your
hairs.
purple hair, and eat a bloody tomato, you hippie. Stop worrying about your carbon footprint.
I liked that, but I liked that Paul Dano with his character. It wasn't like. Again, it wasn't as strong as it was in Baby Driver, as we talked about, but he had a violent streak.
One time.
I know, that's what I was saying. It wasn't as strong as it was. I mean, even, like, Baby Driver, it was just one line. With this, he actually did something. So he does he does actually sort of snap a little. I mean, it's just that they were more of a plot device than, like, characters you were meant to like. But I think what was the main focus was that Mija was good. I liked her.
Yeah, and Okja as well in particular. They were good, strong characters, and I cared about them. Like you said, it made me care about them. And I agree with what you said. I don't think it is like a firm anti-meat film. I think it is just sort of telling a story and letting you think what you want to think with it.
Yeah.
I don't think it's anti-meat, because the characters they do, like you said, she eats fish. They're on a farm. They have chickens and things. They're gonna probably kill and eat the chickens, and if not, they're gonna eat their eggs, which are their young. So they're not. It's not like it does. I think you summed it up well with your whole kind of overconsumption and just giving as well as taking argument. I think was quite accurate, and I agree with you there. Well done. I didn't like it as much as The Host.
See, that's the one I've seen. The only other film of his I've seen is Snowpiercer, and I preferred this.
I haven't seen Snowpiercer.
I think I preferred this in some ways to Snowpiercer. Snowpiercer, it's even quirkier with some ways, and Tilda Swinton's characters, basically, it's just the same character with a different voice, really. Which is irritating, but I think the action scenes in that are better, and I think it's got an interesting concept, which I think is just something else. But I preferred the characters in this, and I think it had an overall, like, the plot structure was better than it was in Snowpiercer.
Yeah. I like, the thing is, I would say The Host is one of my favourite foreign language films. I think The Host is amazing. It's basically, it has like a kind of quirky streak. The Host has like a sort of quirky quality to it, but it's a bit more tempered. And it's a creature feature about this monster that runs through South Korea. But what happens is it's centered around this family with a kind of a dysfunctional, quirky-ish family, and they lose their the sort of the youngest daughter of the family. Like they lose the Little Miss Sunshine, if you will.
Yeah.
And they have to go get her back. And it really gets quite dark and quite scary at times. And I really think The Host is a very underrated film. And I'm just mentioning this because I think more people should watch it. So if you
I've wanted to watch it for a while. Yeah.
Even, in fact, if you don't like creature features, I think The Host is one that rises above it, and I think you could still enjoy it either way. It has some darkly comedic elements as well. The most obvious dark comedy moment in the film I can think of is a massive spoiler, but I really quite like the darker comedy stuff in it too. But yeah, The Host is really good. I would recommend watching The Host.
I really like him as a director. I mean, while I said I preferred this to Snowpiercer, I still enjoyed Snowpiercer more than a multitude of blockbusters.
Yeah.
I've wanted to watch The Host for a while, but I'm going to try and go out my way and watch it soon, just because, again, if that's good, he's very consistent as a director, and I'd like to just see more from him.
I do think, I want to get back to this, because I feel like I messed up my point by just talking about Paul Dano's hair and his suit, but I do genuinely think his character was hipster and annoying. Not just because of his hair. I don't want to just sound like get a haircut hippie is my review of Okja.
It's just Harrison hates Bohemians. That's what I'll just say. Is the whole subtitle of that.
All the way through Spider-Man Homecoming, I was just thinking of all these teenagers. Get a job. Just
get off your Twitters. Do some real work. Learn carpentry. Did you want to move on to news at all?
The one news story that I remember, the only item of news that I can remember, was that Matt Reeves has got rid of the script for the Batman.
There was a lot of suspense for that.
Matt Reeves got rid of the script for the Batman.
I have exactly the same amount to say as when I messaged you, which is just good. Just one word. I mean, you had a good argument for the fact that while what's-his-face Ben Affleck has done good stuff in the past, for context, I was on a flight and was watching multitude of bad films. I ended up watching Girl on the Train all the way through. Awful. It was an awful film, but I finished that. I could not watch 15 minutes of Live by Night, and it was just, and it was the writing and it was the editing. Like, that's the thing, is that it's not like it could have been something else and Ben Affleck wasn't to blame, but it was. It was enough to put me off his attachment to anything.
Wow. Well, also, I think from your perspective, it's more good the Ben Affleck one has been scrapped.
Yeah.
From my perspective, it's more good the Matt Reeves one, because I like Matt Reeves.
The next one we're probably doing is Apes, like next podcast, and I'm genuinely looking forward to it, because while I don't, like I said at the beginning, like the most we've disagreed on a film recently is probably Apes, or some kind of artistic film that I've liked.
Yeah,
but Blockbuster, the most one, and even still, I think Matt Reeves is very talented as a director, much more talented than the majority.
Yeah, and I just think, like, if you look at some of the stuff he said, it was like it all sounded right to me. Like, he went, I'm going to make a detective noir Batman film. Good. Yeah. I'm going to make it about a character who is increasingly struggling to uphold his morals in a world that's challenging him. Good. That's Batman. Well done.
Yeah.
And then he's talked about how, like, he said the same thing about Apes, which was that, like, he didn't sign on to do Dawn of the Planet of the Apes until they agreed to let him make most of the film about the apes with them doing sign language. And he said that he equally didn't sign on to do this until they let him get his way and agreed to his pitch, which was like, okay, good. That sounds good.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, is that I was more interested in Matt Reeves coming on board than I was with the Joss Whedon story. Like, if that gives an idea of how much I do respect him as a more than most. Just
Have
because
you seen
he
any
has
of his other films?
Cloverfield I liked. I mean, it was a found footage film, but it was also like it was his first film, right? Wasn't it? Which
he has another one, but it's like really. It's like, you know how Shaun of the Dead isn't Edgar Wright's first film.
Oh, right. It's the kind
like
of thing where you can only find it on DVD.
Yeah, it's like, no, Cloverfield's his first film.
What other films has he done besides Cloverfield and Monkeys?
Let Me In is the other.
Oh, okay, and you really like that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I've been meaning that's kind of like The Host. That's been on a I need to watch this because I like the director list.
I for me personally, I think he's actually steadily improved with each film. So Dawn of the Planet of the Apes is my favourite of his films. Although at the time of recording, I haven't seen more of the Planet of the Apes. But I love Let Me In a lot.
You prefer Dawn of the Planet of the Apes to Let Me In?
Yeah, well, if you remember, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes was my favourite film of the year that it came out. Whereas as much as I love Let Me In, it was like my fourth favourite film of the year it came out.
Oh, for some reason I always assumed that you loved it a lot more than that.
Well, no, it's not that. It's to give you some kind of context, Jack. That year had How to Train Your Dragon, Inception, The Social Network, Kick-Ass, and Let Me In. It was like that was a good year.
Yeah, that is actually for you. That's a really good year.
That was
Inception and The Social Network in the same year as well.
Literally every month a new favourite film came out.
Yeah. And for you, Kick-Ass, like that's
yeah. Exactly. So yeah, that 2010. God, we should do a podcast on 2010.
Harrison's life has not improved in 7 years. It's never been
peaked.
better.
It's The World's End, when it's like they said life was going to get better, but it never got that good again. That was 2010. One day we're going to meet up again and I'll be reliving 2010. Stuck in there.
The thing is, I can't remember what was popular as well in 2010. Are you wearing like Vans or something? Have you got like a slouchy beanie?
For season 1 of The Walking Dead.
That was the most popular thing of 2010. Yeah, you're right.
It was good. That was a good season.
Yeah, that was the good season. Other news stories are Quentin Tarantino is apparently prepping his next film.
Oh, the Charles Manson one.
Yeah. I mean,
interesting.
I actually don't know that much about the Manson murders at all. I feel like it's a part of like American history that that hasn't had as much attention in cinema.
Like there's that Aquarius TV show recently did it, but there hasn't been like a big like Zodiac style movie about Manson.
The only reason I really know about it is just from pop culture references and because it is a bit in Mad Men, like in the later seasons. Well, it's about kind of like, you know how people use that as like the point where they say the swinging 60s sort of came to an end. So
I've heard that about Zodiac.
Oh yeah, it's sort of both of those, isn't it? Are they around the same time?
When was Manson?
I believe at the end of the 60s.
I know when Zodiac was operating. If you remember, a few podcasts ago, I quoted a Zodiac phone call, and I can give you the dates.
For the phone calls? Oh my god.
I told you that I was at work and someone came in whose name was like Peter Allen. That was Peter Allen, but I called him Paul Allen for some reason. Eventually someone asked who Paul Allen was. And I had this moment of realization, like, no, he was the last confirmed Zodiac victim.
See, that's the kind of stuff that really establishes that you're the person to stay away from at work. The Manson murders were 1969.
1961?
1969. August 9th.
Ah, so he was actually slightly after Zodiac then.
Oh, okay.
Zodiac, it's a bit ambiguous because people don't know which murders Zodiac did and which ones he took credit for. Because there is a precedent that he took credit for things that the police already had people in custody for.
Right.
So it's a bit different between when he could have started and when we know he started. But generally, it's like the sort of 64 era that Zodiac was killing.
By that means, how do they know that he actually killed anyone?
Because the 5 that we know he killed This podcast has taken a turn. The 5 we know he killed, he gave evidence that only the police could know before it was disclosed in the press.
Right, okay.
Whereas the other ones, he gave evidence after it had been in the newspaper. So it's like, well, he could have done it, but he could have just read it.
Mm.
Whereas the other 5, there was no way of him knowing the things that he wrote about.
Oh, okay.
And they matched his handwriting, so they know it's all the same guy.
And they do
Tune in next week!
And they do definitely, like, they do believe that they know who it was now, don't they?
It's heavily believed that Arthur Lee Allen was the Zodiac, but there is no confirmation, and he had a heart attack on his way to court.
That's just kind of perfect, isn't it? Like,
yeah.
Well, to be fair, it's kind of like the modern Jack the Ripper, in a way.
Yeah.
Like, you don't really want to know who the actual killer was, because there's not, that defeats most of the point.
There is an overwhelming amount of evidence.
I remember you saying at some point, yeah.
Like, it's quite ridiculous, the amount of stuff. And in Zodiac as well, when McPoyle comes in at the end, he does point at that picture and goes, "That's the man who shot me."
Yeah.
McPoyle being from It's Always Sunny, that's not actually his name.
I know, I remembered it, because that was what I thought when I saw the film. I got really distracted with that. That we didn't talk about the news story whatsoever, but that's fine. That's what the whole point is.
It's just talking about us. Do you have a favourite serial killer, Jack?
Yeah, no.
No.
I'm trying to remember, but I think they're all just fictional. I only know, make-believe serial killers. I don't follow the real ones. I'm not a fanboy for real murder.
I have the book somewhere, but it's actually quite a dry, boring book. It's just a collection of facts. It's not presented. A lot of the
books about serial killers are very boring.
Yeah, like it's not like presented as a narrative, even though it is what the film is based on. It's like reading a case file.
That sounds the exact reason why David Fincher wanted to make it a film. Like, they handed him a pile of facts. It was like, this is the perfect script.
No, David, that's not the script. I will film this right away.
Yeah, I suppose that wraps it up, I guess. Do you have any other news stories you remember at all?
No.
No?
You saw The Mummy.
It's a genuine struggle to remember that now. I thought it was fine. Oh, we also saw Wonder Woman. If we want to talk about that.
Yeah, we can briefly do Wonder Woman, because I honestly, my ambivalence to Wonder Woman is so strong, and I know that this is unpopular because I know that it's apparently the greatest superhero film ever made, as is every successive superhero film now.
People have already stopped talking about it, though.
Well, yeah, because Spiderman came out, and now there's a new best superhero movie ever made. Spider-Man will stick in the consciousness a little bit more, because it's got to wait until Thor Ragnarok before a new best superhero film ever made comes out.
I'm trying to remember if I had any points about either of those films.
If I remember anything about Wonder Woman. The thing with Wonder Woman was, it was actually decent, and then for me, it just completely fell apart in its last 30 minutes. Like, I've heard some people say, like, oh, it's fine, okay, it goes a little off the road. No, it face plants. It completely, to me, it got worse than Fan 4 Stick in its last 30 minutes. I hated its last 30 minutes when Ares showed up and was a crusty British man in a suit of battle armor. I couldn't believe what I was watching, and then everything was just lightning crashing around and CGI nonsense, and him just saying really, like, Saturday morning cartoon villain dialogue, and then no, I will defeat him with love. Oh, that was awful.
Yeah,
awful.
it was
awful.
It was just, for me, I just found it completely average all the way through. I felt the exact same about this as I did with Captain America, the first Avenger. For me, it was just, it felt like a remake.
I don't think that Captain America, the first Avenger, got anywhere near as bad as that, though.
The thing is that I was just kind
of... There was nothing that bad in the first Avenger.
I don't know why, I just didn't find it that bad. Like,
no.
I wasn't... But the thing is that by saying I didn't find it that bad makes it sound like I was going, yeah, this is alright. I wasn't that. I was just kind of switched off for all of it.
Yeah.
I only vaguely remember flashbacks.
I don't
final
like
end, and it was just the fact that it did feel incredibly lazy way to end it, an incredibly stupid way to just write out some characters out of it, and that love thing did irritate me. That was the most irritating thing.
Well, the thing is, people keep going like, "Oh, but it's like Christopher Reeve Superman." Yeah, but Christopher Reeve Superman, okay, it was cheesy and it was very optimistic, but it felt earned. It felt like I understood what Superman was saying when he said, "I'm for truth, justice, and the American way." I knew what he was doing and what his ethics were. Wonder Woman jumps up, stabs a man, and then goes, "Oh, that didn't work. I'm going to defeat you with love," without any real sort of like. What do you mean? What are you doing? Like, because she fights him. What does she mean? She's fighting him with love. What is she on about? What do you mean?
I see. So my logic behind it is that because Ares like feeds on people being, I can't think of any other word except for disenfranchised for some reason. be a discourse, he like anarchy, and so she's like, if everyone loved one another, Ares wouldn't have any power.
But they don't love each other.
But they don't. I know. I'm not saying it's.
What's she on about?
I'm trying to follow the logic here. I'm trying to figure it out.
There is no logic. It's just something she says. She just says some crap and
but
then
didn't
kills a man.
Didn't Wonder Woman's mother die for her, and that's how she got that scar, and that's how she defeated Ares.
Was that a joke?
Yeah, that was a really really bland, like dry joke.
I didn't get that. I thought I'd forgotten most of the film, so I thought I just missed a massive plot point. And like, what?
I did. One thing that has stuck in my mind is that I thought the VFX were bad all the way through.
Yeah. Particularly the one that sticks out in my head is right at the beginning, and it made me go, "Uh-oh," really early on. And she's running around as a kid, and she jumps off like a balcony or something, and it's a close-up shot of her falling. And
I just got this brilliant idea of you watching this in the cinema, and Diana jumps off the cliff, and you just go, "Uh-oh," like in the cinema, and people think that you're worried for her.
But it looked like rear projection from an Austin Powers film or something. It didn't look.
It did not look good in the slightest.
No, and then all the action was like mid-2000s speed up, slow down.
Yeah.
Like more than Zack Snyder does it.
I thought the whole beginning bit on the island was hard to get through.
I did. I'm glad you said that.
Because it was just, I am a child, but I want to fight. Mama, let me fight, please.
And I did.
No, Diana, you cannot. You were made from clay.
What are you Italian? But it did. It felt oddly rushed, and yet at the same time dragging. It was like I was at one point I was like, slow down, and at the other part I was like, no, finish. But once she got into World War One, I was enjoying it a lot more. But it just felt like it felt very repetitive, the opening, and it felt like very little was established about any of the characters. Like, they were all just sort of very like, I knew as much about them at the end of the first act as I did at the beginning of the first act.
It is kind of entirely pointless, almost, that first act. I mean, they establish Ares as the villain, and they establish the fact that Diana has been made, she's not human. And then setting up for a reveal that's not even a reveal. Anyway. But then they, like, show her training as she gets older, and I don't need to be shown that. I can just be shown, like, that's what they did in Batman vs Superman. They just showed her, and she's Wonder Woman because she's Wonder Woman.
Yeah,
just let her.
I do really feel like there's so many points of this film that felt like things people would have criticised elsewhere.
Yeah. It was. I think it was just very generic all the way through.
I don't know if it's a feminist thing or if it's a DC finally made something competent thing.
I think there's a lot of different factors.
Because it did feel like they were blinding themselves to a lot of things they otherwise wouldn't, like the speed up, slow down, like the bad effects, like the bad villain, which would get criticised in any other film, or the CGI-heavy conclusion, or some of the out-of-nowhere forced dialogue and the sentiment and the supporting characters that felt very one-dimensional. All these things that I feel like people were just ignoring.
Like you said, the kind of go-to argument for why people are ignoring those things is just because it's Wonder Woman, because it's the feminism thing. But I think there must be something other than that, because it's if it was...
There have been women superhero films before that have been recognised as bad.
So first that, and then two, the stuff that is bad about it no way links into her being a woman or anything like that. Like it's not like the villains are women either, and it's not like it's a particularly like different relationship from any other superhero film. Like it's not like he's the damsel in distress. Like it's still very much like they're on sort of like a level playing field. So there's nothing that's particularly like that I can point to anywhere besides her character as being particularly pro-women. I don't get how people can excuse that, but at the same time I don't see how the argument for it's because of feminism fits into that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I get what you mean.
I'm just very confused by why this film is so popular, is what the point is.
I didn't dislike it, it just felt like as good as an average MCU film.
That's the thing. I would put it on equal playing field with Doctor Strange. Like, I don't have to give it a shiny medal for being average. Like, it's just like it's. I'd watch it again over Batman vs Superman or Man of Steel if I was given the three. But to be honest, that's not a big prize either. I mean, it's just.
And as for The Mummy, perfectly passable. I don't understand the hatred of that. Like, they're more or less as good as each other, but for some reason one of them's adored and the other's hated.
I would genuinely just say that they're exactly equal. I mean, every single thing that I go, well, that's an obvious flaw with The Mummy, there's an equally obvious flaw with Wonder Woman. Like, you can point to the exposition for The Mummy, and the reason that they keep repeating exposition for some reason, which is baffling. But then for the Wonder Woman, like you said, they've got lines where they just address stuff very bluntly, and then they've got like the whole stupid ending and all of that. And I think they've got worse visual effects in Wonder Woman than they've got in The Mummy. Like, I wasn't blown away by The Mummy anything, but I never thought, and I can't remember a shot where I thought that's bad. There was a shot where like the stuff with the eyes I thought was stupid, but I never thought it was bad VFX.
And you agreed with me that the whole universe building thing has again been overstated. Like, people have said that it's nothing but like a film burdened by setup for the Dark Universe, and didn't feel like that.
No.
To me,
the worst bit about the Dark Universe was the title at the beginning. And then I was expecting it to be a lot more heavily involved throughout, and it wasn't. I mean, I wouldn't put, if it wasn't for the Dark Universe thing, like put at the beginning, and then they announced it after this film came out, then I don't think I would have noticed what they were doing in that thing. I mean, sure, they've got the Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde thing, which people go, why is that there? Why have you put that in? But that's exactly what the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen did. Other films have done the exactly same thing, as well as like comic books and media. And like they said, it's Universal. They can do the old Universal monsters. It's just they were already interconnected in the 30s and 40s. I didn't find it forced at all.
Did you see that the list of demands or not demands, but the rumors about Tom Cruise's controlling habits on the set?
I heard stuff about it, but I didn't.
Some of it was amazing.
Nothing comes to mind.
Like, he hired a new editor for the film.
Oh, really?
For a start. He also got someone else in to rework the script. He got Christopher McQuarrie as one of the script writers involved. And he mandated it, so, or it is, no, let me change that. It is alleged that he mandated it so that, when his character is introduced in the script, it says, a young, handsome man.
Oh, wow. Okay.
and it is alleged that he had it changed so that he had more screen time than the Mummy, which initially wasn't the case.
That's a kind of strange change. I mean, I don't really get having more screen time for the Mummy, but at the same time, it's weird that he can force that.
It's not that the villain had more screen time. I think it was more that he was maybe part of a more ensemble-y cast.
Right. Okay. I get what you mean.
And then he was like, "No, I'm the lead, and I'm gonna have more screen time than anyone." Whereas before, it maybe was like a team of people, and so the Mummy had more screen time than him just because he was part of a squad, not the lead. But it was that line about his about being introduced as a young, handsome man.
That feels like a very Tom Cruise thing to add.
Yeah. I mean, have you seen the trailer for that other film he's in? The new one?
I don't know what you're referring to.
He's in a new film that's like a true story about some pilot guy. He was involved with Pablo Escobar and stuff. It's got Domhnall Gleeson in it.
I've heard nothing about that.
In the trailer, he's like having sex with this woman, and she looks like she should be his granddaughter. It's really creepy because she's like, I don't know how old she is, but she's too young. I'm not getting judgmental, but I am. Icky. Get a haircut, you hippie. Thank you for listening to what you probably didn't listen to, because it was 2 hours and 8 minutes that I've got recorded here. Jack has run out of memory, so it's up to me to outro. So thank you for listening, and if you, for whatever reason, want to hear more, you can go on our YouTube channel where we have reviews, video essays, and other types of things. And you should look out for our next podcast, where we'll probably be talking about War of the Planet of the Apes. War of the Planet of the Apes. War for the Planet of the Apes, as it is actually called. Thank you. Goodbye.